Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to another Primal The Awakening video. We are hopping back into more monsters. This time we're going to look over the horn monsters. So we have two brand new ones. We have Toramat and Dygorax. So here's Toramat. So if you want to know more about the different monsters and if you go back to the fire video, the first monster video, I did go over just briefly how the monsters play, the stuff on their cards, what some of them mean. I'm not going to go through it on every video, so you can go definitely check that back out. So they're going to show his weaknesses. He has Coral, Metal, and Venom, which is from one of the expansions. Both Toramat and Dygorax have a special, I believe it's called hardening, if I remember right, a hardening counter there as well. So here's Dygorax. He has those other 3 plus ice as well for a weakness. Dygorax, I think it sounds how it should be, and then you also have a hardening. So that'll indicate with them on what they do. And like I did say, I said in the last one, I said, usually it's a monster type thing. I don't know what you really call him. He's sort of like a battering ram type dinosaur. But then this would definitely be our dragon, clearly. So let's go ahead and hop into, let's start with Toramat. So there is his card there. And then let's look at his stances. So we're going to start with stance number 1. I'm going to zoom up a little bit. So this is our prologue. It's usually a little bit easier. So he has toughness of 2 per player, has 1 damage. Nothing too spectacular. Then we go to stance number 2. See if I can flip this up a bit so they're even. A little bit more even there. We have 3 toughness per player. It says when revealed, Toramat gains 1 per player struggle. So again, usually the prologues aren't too terribly difficult for their stances. They don't have too much crazy stuff. Here for 3, he has when revealed, place out of control on top of the behavior deck. Remove the plateau terrain from the board, then place 2 rock terrains in the sector and 1 in each adjacent. Interesting. So I'm not sure what out of control is. We'll have to see. It might be one of his card names. Yeah, we'll see what place out of control on top of the behavior deck. Interesting. Yes, we'll see what that is. We'll eventually come across it, I'm sure. But yeah, that's I'm just double checking the cards, see if I see that card name in here at all. I go, oh yeah, there it is. Okay, so there it is. We'll look at that in a minute here. But yeah, basically it's kind of neat. So he basically smashes that plateau. Now, one thing I noticed is that he has that damage is pretty low, right, per player versus but that's actually it's actually kind of a good, it just means he's gonna go down a little bit easier because of that. But I'm sure he's gonna gain his hardening probably gonna affect that in some shape, way, or form is going to be my guess. So all right, if we look at the level 1, now he gains he has 4, but he has at the start of round 1, Toramat gains -1 struggle per player. In stance 2, he says when revealed, he gains 1 struggle per player. So again, did a little bit higher. Now it's up to 6 toughness. And then stance 3, we have when revealed, place out of control on top of the behavior deck. Remove the plateau terrain from the board. Place 2 rock terrains on each sector and 1 in each adjacent. So he's splitting that up into 4 different rocks instead. That's kind of neat, right? Getting to play around with the terrain like that. In level 2, we start with stance 1. Start of the round, he gains 1 struggle per player. And then we have stance 2. When revealed, Toramat gains 1 struggle and 1 acceleration. +1 Max is 1 acceleration per player. Interesting. What does acceleration exactly do? I'm gonna guess it just speeds them up somehow. Let me grab the rule book here. Trying to mention this stuff as we find it. Acceleration token. Okay, so I didn't grab that token, but it'll look like that. So it'll look like a little boost icon. Monster gains acceleration for specific card abilities. Each time that happens, place a token on the monster. During the monster's upkeep, it gains an additional struggle for each acceleration token. Ooh, cool. So 1 per player struggle and acceleration. So I'm assuming it's supposed to be 1 struggle per player and 1 acceleration token. Or is it supposed to be 1 per player? It has to be only one acceleration token. But still, that's gonna not be very helpful, right? That means he's gonna do his boost abilities more often. And then we hit level or stance 3. When revealed, place our control on top of the behavior deck. Remove the plateau. The players in that sector suffer 2 damage. Then place the 2 rock terrains. So now he's doing damage with that. Cool. And then we'll look at level 3. Which is usually the hardest one. So usually it's kind of like prologue's very easy. Hard is pretty difficult. The other 2 are kind of just, I mean, obviously in the middle, but they're usually not as bad. I think like prologue doesn't really have too much of a challenge from the stance cards, and 3 is kind of like ridiculous. So yeah, at the start of the round, increase the hardening level by 1. Toramat gains struggle 1. So it's gonna up his hardening. For stance 2, he's gonna gain that struggle and the acceleration like before. And then with stance 3, out of control, move the plateau, each player suffers 3 damage. Do they have hardening? Is listed in here. So hardening track is a special track that measures the hardening level over the course of a game. Each time you're instructed to increase the hardening level by X, move the hardening 1 space along the track. When the hardening level becomes 3, the monster becomes hardened. Most monsters remain hardened as long as the card goes at 3. Okay. So yeah, it'll slowly move up that to level 3, and that does it. So we saw stance 1 there, it added that hardening counter. And then what does hardening specifically mean? Because we're going to probably come across that a bunch. Each time you convert damage into wounds, remove all damage the monster currently sustains. Any excess damage is not retained. The monster cannot be stunned, cannot be confused, and you cannot inflict vulnerable. Oh boy, so that's going to make him a lot harder to defeat, because you can't stun him, so you can't put stuff on his behavior card, you can't confuse him, which might mess up his, using his boosts on his cards. You can't inflict vulnerable, which, all 3 of those are terrible, but that's that first part that's just awful, right? Each time you convert damage to wounds, remove all damage. So, what that means is if he gets hardened here, so I'm going to just flip back to stance 1 here. He gains, increase the hardening level by 1. So for example, let's say if he's at 18 and he has 18 hits per. Normally if you did 36 per player, right? Some guy did 36 damage. You did to put 2 counters on them, right? Because they do 1 and then do remove 18, and you put the next one on to remove 1. This time it doesn't matter. You could have 102 count damage to him, right? Somehow made a super giant combo. He's going to take off 18 per player, so if you're playing 2 players, he's only going to take off 36 of those damage, and the rest all disappear if he's hardening. So basically, you need to do as much damage as you can to him before he hardens. Otherwise, you're going to have to try to just be as close to the amount of damage as you need to deal him. Because playing a bunch of cards or doing excess damage is not going to help you anymore. I do want to skip ahead a bit and look at the out of control cards. So we just have this, which is going to be aggro token on the back. So if someone's aggro, this will trigger. But this is that out of control card it mentioned several times. And I'm only bringing this up because typically these guys have 2 copies of each card. But I think they only have one copy of this hardening. I'm just double checking to make sure. But I think that's one of these rare instances where he might only have a one copy because it doesn't have that extra symbol in there. No, but he does have a different card that might kind of counteract with that. But here it says, it's just end up going on the top of the thing when you activate it. The monster turns to the active player. That player suffers attack unless you reveal 2 green cards from their hand. Then discard any other behavior cards with the aggro token. Cool, so he destroys the plateau, throws some rocks out all over the board, and then he's going to turn to you and potentially do damage if you play an aggro card that turn. Cool. Alright, then we're going to look at his peril cards. He has Granite Skin at level 1, or stance 1, sorry. Permanent. At the end of the round, if Toramat has 1 per player or more struggle, increase the hardening level by 1. So yeah, he gains it during his turn, so if you don't remove enough during his turn, he's going to keep gaining that hardening. So you're going to have to actively play defense cards. Not blue cards, maneuver cards. The blue ones to try and remove that. And then the harder version is, at the end of the round, if he has 1 or more struggle, increase the hardening by 1. Not per player, just 1 or more. Wow, that's nuts. His stance 2, he has Rising Fury. Escalation. Toramat gains acceleration. 1 acceleration. Max 1 per player. That's nuts too, because that'll keep upping his struggle. He wants to struggle as much as possible. Escalation. When the behavior deck is emptied, the monster escalates. Immediately reshuffle the behavior card, discard. Reshuffle the behaviors, discard pile to form a new deck, and the monster gains 1 struggle. So, great. So that means when he empties his deck, he gets to gain a struggle, plus then he gets an acceleration token, so he gets to gain more. Jesus. This guy's going to be a pain. And then his harder side is the same thing. So again, sometimes... Now, it's interesting for him. He does not have a peril for side 3, or for stance 3. So he only gets 1 and 2. But then we have Crash the Rocks. This is his objective. So in stance 2, at the start of a player's turn, that player may reveal 2 aggros symbols from their hand. If they do, place a counter on this card. When there are 1 per player counters on this card, remove the card from the game to place Crashing Charge on top of the behavior deck. Interesting. So his perils are going to keep bringing that out of control on there. Which is... So I'm guessing because this guy has a... Oh, we didn't look at his miniature. So here is his miniature, right? So he's going to be giant headbutting. That's the idea of what's like what he's doing. He's going to race towards people. He's going to crash into them rocks and destroy them. We'll look at him a little bit more in a minute here. I'll move the cards out of the way. Yeah, so this is, if you put them aggro, basically, like trying to egg him on to get him to come towards you. You can do that. On the harder side, start player's turn may reveal 2 aggro cards from their hand. If they do, place a counter on this card. When there are 1 per player, remove this from the game, place Crashing Charge on top of the behavior deck. Okay, cool. Alright, so let's see what that does. So we have Crashing Charge, which otherwise is going to have the aggro card on there. It says, the monster turns to the active player. Then the player in the front sector suffers 2 times unless the active player removes a rock terrain from that sector. If they do remove a rock terrain, remove 1 per player acceleration tokens, set the hardening level to 1, and Toramat suffers a wound. Discard any other behavior cards and play with it. So this is neat. So if we get the stance 3 stuff, right? Or peril 2 stuff, or stance 3 stuff, yeah, stance 3. He wants to destroy the plateau and create rocks. And then you can then use that actually as Crashing Charge to basically have him run into those rocks. Instead of using them to avoid attrition damage. You can have him run into them rocks, which resets his, remove some of his acceleration tokens, resets his hardening level, and he suffers a wound. So that could be a very interesting way. You have to use his mechanics against him. Like, you have to have him break the plateau, which means now you can't use that to your advantage anymore. But you want him to do that, so then now you can turn around and have him crash into these. But yeah, so that's a neat little combination there. Cool. Alright, then we have his behavior deck. So we have this circle icon, which I might guess is probably escalation symbol. I'm going to verify it just to make sure I'm saying the right. A trigger. Oh, the monster turns to face a different direction or section. Changes its orientation. That makes more sense. Yeah, so anytime he changes to a different section, he's going to flip one of these over. So the easier side is smash. If there's a rock token in the rear sector, remove it. Oh, so this could be interesting. You can get rid of those rocks. Each player that suffers an attack must attack unless they reveal a green from their hand. So this is him swinging, maybe swinging his tail around. That's kind of cool. And then here we have remove a rock terrain from the rear sector. Each player in that sector suffers an attack unless they discard a card from their hand. There's a rock terrain in the rear sector, remove it. Remove a rock terrain from the rear sector. Interesting. Seems like the exact same effect, just worded slightly differently. And then the bottom is unless they reveal or unless they discard. So that is different. Alright, then the next one, we have him biting his shield. At the end of the attrition phase. Interesting. So at the end of the attrition phase, he's getting a lot of boost acceleration icons and struggle. Stone Wall, increase the hardening level by 1, and if Toramat's hardening, it gains -1 struggle. So basically it's not as threatened. It's not struggling as much because it's defensive. But boost 1, the active player suffers an attack unless they have a green in their sequence. Interesting. And then if we flip over the harder version, increase the hardening level by 1, and if Toramat is hardened, it gains -1 struggle per player. The active player suffers an attack unless they have a green in their sequence. It just removes it as being a boost. If you have a red card, we will trigger Ancient Fury. Toramat gains 1 struggle per player. As the earth trembles under the monster's lagging footsteps, violent emotion vibrates within you that compels you to fight. Cool. Then this side we have Toramat gains 1 struggle. Active player becomes threatened. So he's going to threaten you instead. When he turns, he gets to do this ability. That's kind of cool, because now we have 2 turns. So now the question is, turn with a refresh of 4 and turn with refresh of 4. So I'm going to guess these are the same. So yeah, when these are out, you're not going to know which one you're getting, which is a great mechanic, right? So you can't just be like, oh, it's the turn mechanic with the 3, so that's this one, right? Tail Swipe. Each player in the rear sector suffers an attack unless they reveal a green. There are no players in the rear sector. Players in the flank sectors are targeted instead. Oh boy. So yeah, if there's not someone there, then you can hit multiple characters in there. That's create multiple areas. Then the harder ones, each player suffers an attack unless they discard 1 instead of just real. If there are no players in the rear sector, the flanks are targeted instead. Boost. Place a dust token in each sector where there's at least 1 player is targeted by the base ability. Place a dust token in each sector where at least 1 player is targeted by the base ability effect of this card. Max 2 dust tokens per sector. So, alright. We didn't look at tokens yet. We're going to have our hardening token, just to keep track of the board. Then we're going to get these dust tokens. They're green, double-sided. I don't think inherently they have any ability. I might guess they trigger with other stuff. they kind of put all this stuff in like different spots of the book, so I gotta keep swapping between stuff. Yeah, so it does have some abilities. So Dust says, at the start of your attrition phase, immediately take a Disrupt token for each Dust in your sector. When you receive a Disrupt token, place it on a defensive card in your sequence. That card does not count during your attrition check during this turn. Discard any Disrupt tokens at the end of your attrition phase. At the end of the round, remove all Dust tokens from the board. Note you can never have a maximum of 2 Dust per sector. Interesting. So he'll drop all these. Then during that attrition phase, you have to basically cover up your defense cards. So he is going to make you play or discard a lot of these green cards to do stuff. And then now he's going to have Dust tokens, which are going to then negate some of them as well. So, oh boy. Alright, here we have only 2 different symbols. So we have, if he's in the rear sector, the active player, the first one will trigger. The harder one will trigger if anyone is in their rear sector. So the easier one is active player discards an attack from their hand, red or blue. Toramat's hammer-like tail is capable of smashing an airship to pieces with a single blow. There's airships in this game? I want to see one of these airships. That better be an expansion. I want to play with one of those. You know, fight the dragon in the air, right? Maybe make it the opposite way, where your heroes are in the center section and the dragons move around the board. Like little tiny dragons. Players in the rear section must discard a attack from their hand. So now it's all players instead of just the any player in the rear sector instead of just the active player. That's awesome. Cool. Next one up, we have if you're in the front sector in front of him, he's probably going to eat you. No, he's going to skull bash you. The active player suffers an attack unless they reveal a green from their hand. If they reveal a green, remove 1 acceleration from Toramat. You definitely see that someone with lots of green in their deck are going to do better than someone with less, because they're going to be able to absorb some of these attacks. The harder one, gain 1 struggle for each player in the front sector. I don't know why it didn't put the 1 struggle per player. It's not per player, for each... Okay, that's why, because it's for each player in the sector. Each player in the front sector suffers an attack +1 unless they reveal 2 green. Move 1 acceleration from Toramat for each player that revealed 2 this way. Cool. Got some neat stuff there. Also in the front to fight him, we have Pawing the Ground. Plays a Dust token in the rear sector. So he's from the front, he's shoving it towards the back. Toramat plants an enormous beak on the rocky ground, lowers its armored head, and pounds the ground with its hind legs as it prepares to charge. Oh, makes sense why it's in the back. And a boost gets +1 attack till the end of turn. And then we have, he gets some acceleration tokens, so he's going to probably trigger boosts all the time. And then the harder one looks like it's the exact same thing. But hey, Dust tokens again, yeah, they shut off your defense, so it's not bad. We have a rampaging card, so it'll trigger if anything else triggers. Raging Havoc. Toramat turns to the player with the highest number of aggro in their hand. That player suffers an attack unless they reveal a green. And then the harder one, highest number of aggro in their hand. The player suffers an attack unless they reveal 2 green from their hand. Awesome. Then his final one is, at the end of the round, he'll act Hardening. Increase the hardening level by 1 unless the aggro player discards a blue card from their hand. And then if Toramat is hardened, it gains -1 struggle per player. And then the harder version is increase the hardening level by 1 unless all players discard a blue from their hand. And if it's hardened, it gains 1 struggle. That's like the exact opposite. That's crazy. Yeah, so he's kind of neat. He's going to use his hardening thing to like help prevent damage. And And then he's going to kind of play around with that attrition a little bit. He's going to gain boost tokens or acceleration, which gets you more struggle. So you can do boosts and stuff and do that last attack. He also comes with 2 extra attrition cards. Speaking of all his attrition, he'll get 2 copies of this. So this means 1 green. So normally the attrition deck just means you have to reveal a defense of that number. Here you have to specifically reveal a green. So yeah, he is really going to punish players that don't play green. We also notice on the back of his cards, I don't believe... And there's like a red. But yeah, none of them, there's just the 1 red. So like, for actually playing for triggering stuff, playing attacks, maybe you might trigger that 1 red, but playing maneuvers to reduce struggle counters, playing dodge or parry cards aren't going to activate this. But you're going to need a lot of them green cards to defend yourself. So that's pretty cool there. Alright, let's take a look at him a little bit more. We didn't look at him too much earlier. So he's got this big stony bulbous carcass of a head. I don't know where his eyes are exactly supposed to be, or if he's this guy like Tremor style, he just senses movement. Like in the ground. I love the base, little rocky base, little tiny little claws in there. I don't know what these big giant like branches are supposed to be exactly. So there's like his artwork. I mean, they kind of look like stone branches, really, but yeah. So that is him. Alright, let's look at our next monster. It's going to be Dygorax, who's kind of like our stone dragon. So here's this big boy. So he's got little claws on his front wings. Like the little holes in the wings. Like these all brilliant. But he also has spikies or armor all over it. He has some big, giant, massive horns. Which I'm sure he'll probably use as defense, like right, protecting his neck. But yeah, then he's kind of like crouched over, hunched over, like. So like he's gonna probably do like a ramming attack as opposed to like we had our fire one whose name I can't remember. Varaxian, who was like all breathing fire. I'm guessing this guy's gonna do more of like head charges and stuff like that versus breathing fire. But we will see. Alright, so we looked at his first stance card. For Prologue, we have Resistant. At the start of the round, place a Dust token in the front sector. He gains -1 straw. So he's going to start off playing with Dust right off the bat. He doesn't even care. What does Resistance do? Probably block someone with damage. When you complete a stance card with the keyword Resistance, do not carry any excess damage over to the next stance. Okay, so yeah, if he's hardened, right, when these guys are hardened, they don't change when they take regular damage. This also shuts off stance damage, so normally it should be like once he takes 2 wounds, he switches to 8, and then if you had enough, you might be able to hit another point or 2, depending on what it is. And this is like, nope, that's not going to happen. It's going to drop right off. But you can be hit from any area, so... Alright, then stance 2, he has Resistance. When revealed, place a fire terrain in the front sector. I was wrong. He is going to breathe fire on you anyhow. Yes, we'll have the fire token here. Orange side, red side. Big thing with the fire terrain, just a quick reminder is, while you're in a sector with fire terrain, you cannot play cards into your sequence. At the end of the round, it flips to yellow. End of the next round, it goes away. If you are already in an area with fire, and they place another fire token, you get a burning token. Burning token means when you discard your, or when you have to reshuffle your deck, you take burning damage, which is equivalent to your weapon level, which applies as well as your fatigue damage. Yeah, so being in burning area is not good. So you're going to play dust tokens to shut down your defense, and he's going to set you on fire. Stance 3, when revealed, each player puts a sector of the in a sector, the dust token suffers an attack unless they discard a green card from their hand, so dodging. Interesting. So he's got a lot going on. Pretty cool. Alright, our level 1 stance 1. Start of the round, places a dust token in the front sector, gains -1 struggle, and has resistance. Stance 2 places that fire token. These are the same. I'm going to kind of just keep moving through these. And then level 3, dust token suffers an attack unless they discard a defense from their hand, a dodge. Oh boy. Alright, level 2. At the start of the round, place a dust token in the front sector. Gains -1 charge. So that stayed pretty much the same. Stance 2, place a fire terrain in the front sector. So yeah, usually the first couple stay roughly the same. And then 3, each player sector death suffers unless they discard a card. So all those stay the same. Just his toughness and his attacks are going up with each. Ow! I just elbowed him right in the head in his spiky horns. That really hurt. Ow. Careful, kids. These things will kill you as fast as they'll kill your hunters. Ouch. Alright, so level 3, stance 1, place a dust in the front, gains 1 charge. So it doesn't seem too terribly different for all these. Ooh, here we go. So now we're getting a little bit harder. When revealed, place a fire terrain in the front sector. Players in that sector suffer burning. There's no way to get rid of burning as far as I know, other than just letting it run its course. And then players in this sector with a dust token suffer an attack. And now they have no way of dodging it, so they just take that damage. Crazy. Cool, so he's got a lot going on for him. Fire tokens, dust tokens. Alright, we have his paros. So, hardening. For stance 1. When a player suffers attrition damage, increase the hardening level by 1. Okay, so avoiding that. Attrition is going to be helpful. But again, he keeps making you have to discard your green cards with stuff. So that's going to make it harder to get. His harder level is players suffer attrition damage, increase the hardening level by 1. Then if Dygorax is hardened, it gains 1 struggle. Our stance 2 is unbreakable at the start of the round. Increase the hardening level by 1. Ooh, so if you don't beat him fast, basically, you know, if assuming he hasn't already hardened for some reason, he's going to probably finish hardening by the end of stance 2. Harder one is at the start of the round, increase hardening by 1. Then if he's hardened, he gains +1 attack till the end of this round. Crazy. And then our third stance is Dragon Scales. Well, Dygorax is hardened. The rear side is the only exposed side. Oh, boy. So basically his head's protected, his wings kind of protect him, but you can still bash him in the butt. Then we have this one. So he has Infuriate 2, 6, and 9. Will Drax is hardened. The rear side is the only exposed side. So Infuriate means during the boost phase, not the boost phase, what's it called? The refresh phase, when they're gaining struggle. They gain an additional struggle based on aggro cards during the upkeep. Gains an additional struggle based on the number of aggro cards collectively the players have in their hand. So if all the players combined have at least 2 of those symbols on their cards, he gains 1 struggle. If they have at least 6, he gains 2. If he has at least if they have at least 9, he gains 3. So just a way for him to gain some extra struggle, because, you know, he really needs it. Our objective is hit the tail. So this works for stance 1. For a permanent, if you play a red card via reset, to decrease the hardening level by 1. Cool, so that just keeps hitting him every time you're there. You knock his hardening down. If we look at the harder side, it's going to say permanent. If you're in the play a red card, if you're in the rear sector, decrease the hardening level by 1. If you do, Dygorax gains 1 struggle. So this is kind of, they give you some of the other monsters, right? It helps you out, but while they're while you're defeating them, they also gain a little bit of a bonus of it. Alright, so I did want to double check this. So these cards have permanent on them. And that's what my thought was. So if they don't have permanent, it's like when you leave stance 1 goes to stance 2, the card would go away. Because there's a couple of them that say, like, when you complete this card, or if you do a certain thing, it discards them. But with any ones that say permanent, they will stay into play all the time. So, for example, his hardening will always be in play, right? So it says whenever he suffers attrition damage, it only activates, it shows up when it's at level 1. But this will always be in play till the end of the game. And then when he hits level 2, he gets his Unbreakable, which will always be in play till the end of the turn. So you got to always keep increasing that. But then level 3, it doesn't matter because it's level 3. But yeah, with his objective here, it's always going to be in play the rest of the game. So you'll always have a chance to keep getting behind him and going and removing them hardening. So like when he gets to level 3 here, only his rear side is exposed. So at least then you can jump to the last one every time you play it. You can keep removing that, knock his hardening down. All you have to do is knock it down by 1 and he's no longer hardened anymore, right? And then now you can hit some of the other sides. So that's kind of cool that they stay in play all the time. Yeah, that's it. It's a neat mechanic there that they don't always change. Because then you kind of always have to deal with that stuff. So yeah, he doesn't play around with the dust as much. But that's what definitely makes him neat. Like, you don't want all the guys to play the exact same. Adding that fire in there is kind of fun because it's not just fire, it's just for the fire guys. So that's pretty cool. Alright, let's look at his behavior cards. So we're going to look at the first one, which are going to have, at the end of the turn, they will activate Dust Attack. Each player in a sector of the Dust token suffers an attack unless they discard a blue or a green card from their hand. These guys don't, these horn guys really don't like green cards. Each player in the sector of the Dust token suffers an attack +1. Targeted players may discard a card from their hand to have that damage. So the first one lets them discard a green card to avoid it. The second one only lets them do it if they only have it. Oh, that's crazy. Alright, this is a Berserker, or not Berserker, I keep saying Berserker, but they're Rampage cards. They trigger when something else triggers. And this is Dragonfire. Place a Dust token in the front section. Boost 3, place a Fire Train in the front sector. Ooh, it's gonna set y'all on fire. And the harder spot is increase the hardening level by 1 and place a Dust token in the front sector. And then at 2, struggle, place a Fire Train in the Argo player's sector. That player suffers burning. So yeah, now it specifically aims towards whoever has the aggro. And burns them. Dust tokens do go away at the end of the round, so at least they're not persistent. So that's at least kind of nice. They last through the attrition phase, but then they go away. So now this is always fun when we get something like this, where they have different ones. So the easier one, you have to play a red card to trigger it. The harder one, you just have to play an attack, so it can be red or blue. It makes it easier to activate. Armoring. No special skills right away. The monster's ivory stain thickens until it becomes harder than stone. Boost, increase the hardening level by 1. I also like that these cards kind of like flesh out the character more, right? So it's like, well, what's he like Toramat, right? Oh, he's charging, he's hitting rocks, he's hitting stuff with his head, or he's bashing with his tail. This one's kind of showing like, oh, his skin's actually hardening. He's becoming more armored up. Like, that's why he's hardening. So that harder one just says the same exact thing. It's just going to trigger more often. Then we have some yellows or a defense. And this is the first yellow we've seen in all the monsters, so that's kind of cool. Pressure. Dygorax gains -1 struggle per player. The active player suffers an attack unless they play a defense as the next card in their sequence. Oh, that's cool, because that way it's like you trigger a yellow card, maybe you're like, okay, now I can trigger a red to activate this special ability on 2 of my cards. But now you have to be like, oh, crap. If I play that red card, I can do all this stuff, but I have to take a hit from him. You can't afford to take the hit, it might mess up your combos. Especially if you have something you're planning like yellow, red, yellow, or something like that, because that might mess up 2 of your combos right there. That's fun. It messes something up like that. He's putting pressure on you, so he's going to screw up your attacks. The harder one is gains -1 struggle per player, suffers 1 damage plus, then, unless they play a defense in their next sequence. Cool. We have a red one. Dun, dun, dun. The Voice of Destruction. The active player suffers an attack unless they discard a yellow card from their hand. And then the harder one. Each player in the active player sector suffers unless they discard a yellow from their hand. So I thought some of the earlier ones are just the active player, then the later ones hit everybody. So it kind of like makes the easier games, like you can kind of group up together and that's fine. The later ones is going to almost usually punish you for being together. If you're in front of him, this card will activate. And this card is Burning Eye. Dygorax gains 1 struggle per player. In stance 3, places a fire terrain in the front sector. An ancient fire burns in Dygorax's chest. In its gaze, you feel the desire to incinerate, destroy, and reduce everything to dust. Oh boy. Learning about these creatures this way, right? That's really neat. Alright, so the harder one gains the 1 struggle per player. Aggro player suffers an attack unless they discard a defense. And then stance 3, they place their fire terrain. The aggro player suffers burning and discards the top 3 cards of their deck, which gets them closer to that burning damage. Oh boy. You're mean. You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. Alright, we have the easy one. If the active player is in the tail section or the rear. The other one is if anyone is in the rear section. So this will only probably hit the active player. Place a dust token in the rear sector. The active player suffers attack +1 unless they reveal 2 defense from their hand. 2 dodge, I should say. 2 green. And then tail smash on the harder one. Place a dust token in the rear. Each player in that sector suffers an attack +1 unless they reveal 2 from their hand. So it just hits everybody instead. Next one. Ooh, double attacks. So that's a little bit harder to trigger because you have to play 2 of them. But it will still come up occasionally. Dragon's Roar. Dygorax gains 1 struggle per player and +1 damage till the end of the round. Place a dust token in the aggro player's sector. Ooh, I think this might be the only one that's so far letting you place him in the, would be like where his flanks are. Everything's either been in the rear or the front. Either like he's scratching with his claw or his tail to like create it. Not that he couldn't turn and put stuff in those, whatever sector he's in. And then the other one, he just gets, he gets +2 damage instead. Alright, so our final one is we have flank cards. Either if you're in the flank or anyone's in the flank. We get Wing Attack. Place a dust token in each of the flank sectors. And I just said, we haven't had card that puts them in there, and then lo and behold. Each player in those sectors suffers damage unless they reveal 2 defense from their hand. So he's going to, again, kind of like Toramat, target your defense cards. And then the other one is place a dust in each of the flank sectors. Each player in those sectors suffers an attack unless they reveal 2 defense from 2 green from their hand. So the harder one just has to be green. Easier one just has to be defense. Yeah, he's very interesting. He's going to be placing on dust tokens, dropping a little bit of fire, which is going to be a pain. That hardening. He doesn't seem to harden as much or almost as quick except he does have these stance cards that are going to constantly give him stuff. But he's going to keep hardening, which is really much of a pain. But he has pretty much every sector you can hit him in until he gets to his third stance. So that's not bad at all either. And then, yeah, his cards on the back. You know, we have basically attack and defense stuff. So it's not too bad. You know, couple here, couple there. But yeah, that was our big giant guy. That's what we have for the Horn monsters. So we have our two Horn guys. They're going to be throwing up Dust tokens, which will block your attrition cards, your defense for your attrition. Plus, they're going to make you have to discard a bunch of defense. If you're heading to these guys, you're going to probably want to switch into weapons that let you have more green cards in your deck. And you're probably going to want to try and get to some of their weaknesses. So that you can maybe add some more green cards. And their weaknesses, again, are both of them have Coral and Megal from the base game, and then Venom from the expansion, and possibly Ice. So yeah, you're going to probably want to go Coral or Megal to do extra damage. I'm guessing it's kind of makes sense. Rock creatures, like Megal, is going to hit harder than Stone, or Horn. Might make sense, I guess. Stone, Horn, kind of combining those together. And then water kind of like erodes it. I can see Venom and Ice as well. Ice probably because he has more flesh spots available than the other guy. But yeah, so that's something you're definitely going to want to keep an eye on. I know I think Toramat has a lot of people, I think he's like one of the first quests you play. Like the second quest, I think, the first campaign. I think a lot of people had difficulties with them. Again, if you can kind of focus on weaknesses, keep a lot of green cards, plan that out. Even if you're not looking at specific cards and like cheating ahead of time like that. I don't want to call it cheating, but like studying the cards and trying to remember them. But if you keep a lot more green cards in your deck, you're going to have a better shot. Just make sure you hang on to them, don't discard them for stamina. But yeah, you got to figure out that's what the monster's strength is. He wants to play on that. You have to play around that. You have to build your deck, play your characters that way. Even with Dygorax, eventually you're going to get to where you need to be in the back sector playing attacks. So you're going to want to save some of your attack cards for stance 3. When that triggers, you're going to want to get someone that can get to that stance 3 and drop attack card. Yeah, one attack card will drop his hardening down 1, which will get him out of the hardening state, which is nice. So you can attack him anywhere. But if you can have the guy do 2 or 3 different attacks and knock that way down, so it doesn't just immediately crease right back up to hardening on the next round, so you're not forced to do it immediately. Maybe you can get 2 or 3 attacks out of it. Yeah, just all strategy based on the guys. Really cool. Hope you guys are enjoying these videos. Come back, check out the rest of the monsters. Check out the hunters if you haven't seen those. See you guys later. Bye.